Elena asked, looking at me with wide, expectant eyes. For a few seconds, I took my eyes off the road and looked back at her. I don't know why, but she reminded me of Puss in Boots from Shrek. That was exactly how she looked. Of course we'll make it. Don't you doubt it, I assured her and turned my gaze back to the road. In truth, calling it a renovation was an exaggeration. All that remained was to install the lights in the hallway, arrange the furniture, and finish the outlets in the nursery. Elena was always afraid of change. Generally, she was a rather timid and fearful person. I finished the so-called renovation in a couple of days, which made Elena very happy. She was in her final month of pregnancy, and I didn't want to give her any extra reason for concern. Overall, everything was great. Elena stayed home. I went to work as usual and tried to help her as much as possible. She was always happy when I returned home, but when I stood on the threshold of our apartment one Friday evening, expecting to be greeted, no one came out to meet me. "Elena, are you home?" I shouted, after which I heard footsteps from deep within the apartment. She walked hurriedly into the hallway, and judging by her appearance, she was either alarmed or saddened. "You're back. Well, as you can see. What's wrong? Did something happen?" "You know, not yet, but I feel uneasy." "Wait, let me wash my hands, and then you'll tell me." When I came out of the bathroom, Elena immediately began telling me what had happened. "When you left for work, I couldn't sleep. I tossed and turned, but it was no use. So I made some tea, went out on the balcony, and I just felt that someone was watching me. But there's no one in the apartment. I looked down, and some woman was staring at me. I thought, well, it happens. She'll stand there, look, and leave. But she wouldn't go. What if she cursed me? I held her close and explained that the woman was probably crazy or had just had too much to drink and mistaken her for someone else. I told her it definitely wasn't worth thinking about all day, let alone worrying over. After some time, my wife calmed down, and we had a great Friday evening that transitioned into night. We went to bed long after midnight, and I really wanted to sleep in on my day off. However, that didn't happen. "Serioza, get up. She's there again." "Serioza," Elena whispered hotly into my ear while shaking my shoulder. "Who? What?" Half asleep, it was hard to understand what my wife wanted. Who was there? Where? Who was this mysterious she? That crazy woman is there again. She's staring at our balcony again. Barely opening my eyes, I trudged to the balcony, but when I got there, I saw no one. "Honey, you must have imagined it." "No," she said firmly, pouting. "Well, look for yourself." Elena confidently walked up to me and tried to scout the yard. She turned toward me with a bewildered look and stammered that there was no one. "Look, let's do this. Try not to go out on the balcony unnecessarily. And if you do and you see her, call me immediately." Okay. That day was relatively quiet. But then came Sunday. Elena was almost hysterical at the sight of this mysterious lady. I was fed up, so I had to go to the balcony to check who had taken such a liking to our apartment. This time, I spotted her almost immediately. It was warm, even hot outside, yet she stood there in black clothes, wrapped from head to toe. The sight of this lady even scared me. I can imagine how Elena felt. This woman stood there brazenly staring at me through round glasses. I didn't stand on ceremony and shouted, "What do you want? Get out of here before I come down." The threat worked, and this tortoise slowly trudged toward the archway. Children were playing on the playground. A young girl was walking a small dog while sipping cold water. An old man stood on a third-floor balcony in just his trousers, smoking a cigarette. Finally, warm weather had arrived in the city. The lilacs were blooming, the sun was warm, and people walked until evening. Everyone was dressed lightly, t-shirts, shorts, dresses. And among these lightly dressed passers-by, a woman dressed entirely in black stood out. It was unclear if she was in mourning or had just put on the first thing she found in the closet. Black sweatpants and an oversized hoodie were clearly not for the weather, and her hair, pulled into a messy bun, and smudged glasses completed the look. Two purple bruises stood out clearly on her pale face. This woman was already familiar to the residents of the house on Sovetskaya Street and only frightened the new tenants who had moved into the apartment where she once lived. She had a lot connected to that apartment, including the death of her son. Pasha died before he was even 3 years old. Since then, the grief-stricken mother could not find peace. She would come to the yard and stand for a long time, looking into the windows of the apartment where she used to live. How great was her disappointment when she saw a pregnant girl there. The woman felt a physical pain, as if she had been kicked in the stomach. Elena looked at the pregnant girl with hatred and malice, realizing how unfair life was to her. In that moment, she decided on a difficult step. "Be patient, my dear, be patient. You'll be back soon," she muttered to herself as she walked down the crowded street. "I gave birth." Elena shouted enthusiastically into the phone. "Thank God everything is fine. What about the baby? How is he?" "We are doing great. Weight is 3.5 kilograms. Healthy. Wonderful. When can I come see you?" "They don't let anyone in here. We'll only see each other at the discharge," she said sadly. "Well, can I pass anything to you?" "I'll message you now," Elena chirped, and then began asking how I was doing. That evening, I was incredibly happy and realized that I now had a real family. The first days after the discharge went as usual. True, at times it was a bit tiring. I didn't think small children could be so fussy, but you get used to everything. Besides, it's all temporary. My son will surely grow up, and Elena and I will miss his childhood. For now, we had to accept the situation as it was. One night, Elena suddenly shook me awake. "What is it?" I whispered. "Is something wrong with Igor?" "Seryoza, go to the bathroom, check what's there." I heard some noise. I was ready to get up for my son or help Elena, but going to the bathroom in the middle of the night was something new. "What do you mean, what noise?" "Oh, Seryoza, please. It sounds like water is running by itself. What if a tap broke?" Elena was overly fearful, so she most likely imagined it, but I didn't want to pay for the neighbor's repairs either. I checked the bathroom and, as it turned out, found nothing suspicious. "Everything's fine, Elena," I reported when I returned to the bedroom. "Thanks. Good night. You're welcome. Sleep well. Oh, you. But nothing. Soon he will return. Believe me, I will do everything for that, muttered the woman in smudged glasses, looking at the young mother who had just come out of the entrance with a stroller. The girl pushed it in front of her, looking around with interest and smiling. It seemed nothing could spoil her mood, when suddenly she involuntarily screamed and woke the baby. The infant woke up from the loud sound and started crying. The mother didn't know what to do and darted back and forth. Only the woman in the black hoodie and smudged glasses looked at them haughtily before slowly walking away. I suspected that my wife wasn't quite right in the head. As soon as we moved into this cursed apartment, everything went wrong. First, she was scared by some woman in black clothes. Then Elena said this woman was allegedly following her. Now she imagined that someone was walking around the house. Things were moving on their own, and the water in the bathroom was turning on without help. When I was finally convinced that something was wrong, I suggested she see a doctor. But Elena was stubborn, saying she was fine and that things really were happening in my absence. We had our first big fight then, but I still gave in and installed cameras in the rooms. I also bought a baby monitor. After that, she calmed down and stopped jumping at every noise. On Saturday, Elena planned to go for a manicure. She was a bit nervous before leaving, constantly reminding me where everything was and asking me to call immediately if anything happened. When I assured her for the 1,000th time that everything was fine, she asked, "So, I'm going?" "Go. Of course, I'll be back soon," she said and walked out the door. My son was sleeping peacefully in his crib. I was scrolling through social media when I suddenly heard a sound from the next room. A gloomy day is brighter from a smile. At first, it was sung in a cheerful child's voice, but the last words sounded as if the cassette tape had been chewed up. Perhaps the toy's batteries were low, or this Chinese junk was turning on by itself. But when the bunny standing on the chest of drawers began to beat its drum, all my guesses evaporated. The hair on my head stood on end. What was this? The seer had seen many people. They were different. Poor, rich, sick, successful, old, young. It seemed nothing could surprise her anymore. But the woman who came to see her managed to do just that. Elena had buried her son a few months ago. Her husband left her immediately and had already married someone else, and she could not cope with the loss. Her son Pasha drowned in the bathtub. Back then, the intercom rang at the worst time. It rang incessantly, which irritated Elena. She was forced to leave her son alone in the bath. It simply didn't occur to her that her son could die in such a short amount of time. "What have you done?" the seer lamented, looking at the cards. I just wanted my Pasha to live. He is living, yes, but not in a child's body. Now your son's soul is not at peace. There is no place for him in the world of the living, but he is not in the world of the dead. Tell me what you did." Elena cried and told everything in order. The seer already understood that she could hardly help here. The atmosphere in the house was gradually heating up. Elena and I practically didn't sleep at night. We both woke up at the slightest rustle. It was good that Igor always slept as much as he needed and didn't wake up every hour. Staying here any longer was out of the question. We put the apartment up for sale. In truth, there were no potential buyers. Elena was constantly depressed, practically stopped eating, and didn't communicate with me at all, except regarding chores. I was sleep-deprived and constantly irritated. The children's toys were living a life of their own for some reason. The tap in the bathroom really did turn on and off by itself. Now we had to shut off the water at night. I had heard of poltergeists before, but observing it every day in my own apartment was different. I never felt so agitated and nervous. I was developing something like obsessive-compulsive disorder. I was constantly checking if the front door was locked. I would trace a cross in the air with my fingers before entering or leaving the apartment. I checked the video cameras 20 times a day. I had a feeling that if I didn't check the cameras this very second, something irreversible would happen. And so it happened on that fateful day. A colleague was persistently calling me to the smoking room, but I felt a strong urge to check the archive of recordings and said I would join him later. My fingers were already trembling as I fumbled with my phone. What escaped me at the sight of the recording? Something was happening in the living room. Elena and our son weren't there. They were in the bedroom. On the screen, a white sheet of paper lay on the floor, and a pen, hanging in the air, was writing something on it. My blood ran cold. The pen literally had a life of its own. When I zoomed in, I saw what was written. In clumsy child's handwriting, large block letters were drawn. "You are not my mother. I shouldn't be here. I died here." These words echoed in my head. Elena, she's there alone. I remembered and switched to the other room. Igor lay in the crib, and she had gotten out of bed and was about to go out. I immediately dialed her number. As soon as she picked up, I screamed with all my might. "Where are you going right now?" "What do you mean?" "I just want to." "Elena, listen to me carefully. Do not go into the living room under any circumstances. If anything happens, grab Igor and run to the neighbors. Do you understand me?" "What? Why? What's happening?" She screamed and had already run out of the room. "Don't go into the living room." I yelled, but heard nothing in response except her heavy breathing. I instantly switched back to the living room camera and saw the following. Elena opened the door, stumbled upon the paper, and while she was looking at it, a heavy vase flew into her head. Elena lost her balance and fell to the floor, and a crimson puddle immediately spread beneath her. I had to rewatch this fragment several times to be sure. A massive vase easily rose from the floor and then flew into my wife's head on its own. I burst into my boss's office without knocking, said my wife had hit her head and lost consciousness. He let me go without question. On the way, I called an ambulance while I raced home. "Elena, how is she? She probably needs help. Or what if it's too late?" With a pounding heart and shaking hands, I tried to open the front door. The key wouldn't fit into the lock. I had to force it. The apartment was deathly silent. "Elena, do you hear me? Elena." Naturally, no one answered. I rushed to my wife and began to give first aid. She didn't regain consciousness. Fortunately, the ambulance arrived almost immediately. The medics brought Elena to her senses and took her to the hospital. I packed some things, took the child, and went to my parents' house. The next day, I showed the video to my mother. Unlike me, she always believed in the mystical, so she could advise something. She strongly recommended going to a woman she knew, a clairvoyant. I didn't really understand who this woman was or what she did, but there wasn't much choice. There was no point in resisting. It couldn't get any worse. Albina, the clairvoyant, scheduled a meeting that evening. When I turned on my phone to show her what happened, she demanded I turn off the video and laid out her cards. Albina looked at them intently. It seems a spirit has settled in your apartment. Tell me, did you move in recently? You could say that. I see that a child died in your apartment. It feels like he was buried properly. And then, Albina hesitated, looking back and forth between the cards and me. After a short pause, she continued, "You know, it's as if he was resurrected. Something was done so that he is sort of alive now, but his body is dead." "What do you mean, how?" Albina reshuffled the cards. She explained that there was a grieving person near this corpse. Most likely, it's his mother. She's the one who resurrected the boy. This woman has been watching you for a long time. She wanted her child's soul to inhabit your son's body, but she did something wrong. Now he is near you. It felt like I had fallen into a B-rate horror movie, but this was a reality that was hard to believe. Albina said we needed to move out of that apartment, and she would try to help us. The apartment was still for sale, so we had to move to a rental. Elena wasn't thrilled, but understood everything. In the new place, we calmed down quickly. I believe the ghost stayed in that apartment. Elena had just put the baby to sleep. She put the kettle on and stood in front of a large mirror in the hallway. Before her pregnancy, she used to do her makeup and hair every day. She liked to stand by the mirror and groom herself. Elena smiled at her reflection and reached for her makeup bag. "I wonder if you're still usable," she muttered, dipping the brush into the mascara. When she brought it to her face, she instantly dropped it and screamed. In the reflection of the mirror, there were two, Elena and a small boy standing next to her. His face had a bluish tint. His eyes were like those of a dead fish. His dark purple lips stood out. In terror, she kicked the mirror and recoiled. Shards pierced her leg and face. Elena lost her balance and fell, and when she tried to get up, pieces of glass stuck into her palm. The terrified girl looked around and realized no one was there. But she couldn't have just imagined it. Shaking, she dialed my number and screamed, "Come home." I couldn't believe it was happening again. What was this boy's attachment to us? How do we drive him away? Albina advised going to church and lighting candles for the dead, but said nothing else useful. And after a while, she stopped taking my calls altogether. Elena was now truly starting to lose her mind. She bit her nails to the quick, chewed her lips until they bled, constantly woke up at night, and cried all the time. I didn't have the strength to comfort her. I myself felt like I was losing my grip. Elena had nightmares all night. She managed to fall asleep toward morning, but it was short-lived because our son woke up. She hoped he would fall back asleep, but Igor wouldn't. "I have to bathe you today," she thought, and decided not to wait for me. I had messaged that I'd be late. Elena filled the baby bath, prepared the water, and put Igor in. Everything was going fine until her phone rang. She jumped and ran to the phone, keeping one eye on her son. It was me calling. Yeah, Serioza, I didn't wait for you. I'm bathing Igor, she answered, then suddenly went silent, staring at her son in horror. Unexpectedly, the boy appeared near the baby bath, the same one she had seen in the mirror. The drowned boy lightning fast grabbed Igor's head and plunged him under the water. He looked at the infant with lifeless eyes and bared his teeth. Blue-green hands held the helpless infant underwater. Igor could do nothing. Elena shrieked, threw the phone into a corner, and rushed to her son. She knocked over the bath, grabbed her son, and pressed him to her. The boy was no longer breathing. I didn't kill him. It was the dead boy, the ghost. Don't you understand? My wife screamed in a voice not her own. The living room floor was covered in water. The baby bath lay on its side. My wife was in a terrible state of hysteria. The medics wrote something down while we wrapped our little son in a baby blanket. His delicate skin had turned blue. Elena threw herself at my feet, screaming, I didn't kill him. It was the boy. Serioza, do you believe me? My ears were ringing, and everything seemed like a movie. This couldn't be happening to me. It had to be a nightmare. My wife was declared insane and sent to a psychiatric hospital for treatment. I did not visit her or contact her. I withdrew into myself and tried not to talk to anyone. A doctor prescribed tranquilizers that at least helped me sleep. Since my son's death, I have thought about only one thing.